Hey there, friends. This is kind of fun. A little something different today. I wanted to actually bring you into the R kitchen. And I wanted to start a series on something that was a little bit different, something that is beginner friendly for people who want to cook but just kind of don't know where to start, or people who are on that journey of cooking for themselves, just starting out and trying to understand what it is that they need to actually own, stock, keep around the kitchen. So I thought I'd start the series off with a nice introduction into cookware, basic cookware, or what I would like to say the essentials. And I'll say these are my essentials, my top picks for what I think are very useful in the kitchen, especially for anyone who's trying to be a little bit versatile or doesn't have the money to purchase a whole bunch of stuff. I'll say this, like you guys have seen some of the streams, I have lots of fun gadgets, things that are just out of this world, and not every kitchen's gonna have, home kitchen's gonna have, just to keep around. So hopefully you guys will stick around, and for those who are looking to begin that cooking journey, this will be a good little primer for you to kind of take a look and maybe refine what you have, or kind of take a look and say, I think I want that in the future. That might be my next thing that I'm getting. So what I did want to do, and give me a second here because I do have a few notes, is I wanted to go over just the basic cooking equipment and really start out with like utensils or cookware. And so I've picked out just a few different items that I think go a long way, and then I'll show you guys what these are. And these are in no particular order. These are just things that I think are useful, and you can build a base from there. And my first pick, or my first item, is actually a nonstick skillet. I think it's perfect for anyone who's starting out. You can do a ton of different things. I have a few medium to small nonstick skillets, which are nice. I mean, always try to get something that's of a better quality, that's going to last you a long time and not flake off into your food. You know, with a lot of the nonstick pans out there, they're not really meant for high heat. So it's better for something like sauteing some vegetables, your onion, your garlic, maybe an egg, right? And then my next kind of beginner friendly or essential or staple is like a pot. And this is going to vary depending on the size of who you're cooking for, right? Maybe you're cooking for yourself, maybe you're cooking for a family of 4 or more, right? But a good 2-quart cooking pot seems to be a good starter. I use that for stuff like boiling potatoes, stewing tomatoes, maybe if it's just even making a simple soup, boiling some water. And you know, it's not something you necessarily have to fill up all the way with liquids. You could even cook your rice in it. I know starting out, that was one of the things that cooking rice, I was always hesitant to use an automatic rice cooker. My family, everyone's used rice cookers, and I was like, you know, I'm going to just use a pan, a pot, tried and true. It'll be good. It wasn't until a little bit later in life that I realized, you know, the rice cookers are super easy to use. They just magically know when the rice is done, and you have any kind of rice you want done just like that, right? So yeah, a good pot always goes a long way, whether it's a stock pot, a small pot for stewing, and I'll lay these out so you can kind of see as we talk about it. And then my all-time favorite, I think this is one piece of cookware that is just so versatile, and it's a cast iron skillet. And you're probably thinking, like, what, a cast iron skillet, like Oregon Trail, one of those you take camping, and yeah, really, like I'm going to show you one here that's really nice, and they can come in all different brands. They're different depths. This happens to be a Lodge one. I mean, Lodge has been around for a while, but there's other companies that make them. What makes this so versatile is it retains heat really well. The heat distribution's pretty good. But on top of that, like I said, it is very versatile. So oftentimes you'll see me roasting whole chickens in here. I'll cook my breakfast potatoes in here. And if it's really well seasoned, you can actually fry an egg in here without it sticking. And I'll say there is a little bit of a learning curve with cast iron skillet, but I would say not as big of a curve as working with stainless steel. Now I have stainless steel pans that are wonderful, but you have to make sure that if you're like, maybe you've seen them, if you're frying an egg in it, you have to make sure it's at the right temperature, otherwise your eggs will stick. But yeah, I've done eggs in this, scrambled, over easy, sunny side up. Potatoes, I'll cook steak in it, burger. But that's pretty much my top 3 items, I would say. So your non-stick skillet, your pot, and your cast iron. I think those are great places to start. So next, we're going to talk about utensils. And I want to get into this with the preface that you really don't need a whole lot when building out your cooking space. I think a little bit does go a long way. So this is a fairly short list. Like I said, you don't need a whole lot of equipment. Oftentimes when I'm scrambling eggs, I'm not using a whisk to scramble eggs. I'm using a fork. So, your common utensils that you already have in your drawer or you use every day work just fine for most of these. Exception would be a couple different knives, right? So my first pick that I would say is a cutting board. Definitely use a cutting board, whether it's for cutting up meats and poultry, vegetables. It's going to keep your work surface clean. You're going to not spread or contaminate other items that might be on your counter. And also a good cutting board, whether it's wood or a certain composite cutting board, it's going to help to preserve the edge on your knife. So you're not cutting on hard surfaces such as granite countertops or a limestone countertop, right? So cutting board. And these aren't going to be in any particular order like the last group, but I would say my next item would be a spatula. With spatulas, I have my favorites, and depending on what kind of cook surface I'm using, what I mean by that is, cast iron, stainless steel, or a non-stick. Most non-sticks have a certain coating on that you don't want to scratch, but I'm a big fan of silicone spatulas, especially for making eggs, being able to flip those. It's the dogs. What do you guys hear? They heard eggs. Spatulas. Spatulas are great. Silicone, and I like a stainless steel spatula. Awesome. Wood ones are great too, but I will say this, if you're gonna get a wood utensil, I prefer like a wooden spoon. Those are great, very versatile, and if you take care of it, it'll last forever. I mean, you see so many homes with wooden utensils. It's amazing, and it's not going to scratch your enameled surfaces or your non-stick surfaces, right? Getting into knives. You can spend a fortune on knives, but I'll say this, and it's real easy, is get yourself a chef knife and a paring knife. A paring knife you can use for cutting up small tomatoes, vegetables, it's fine. I typically use my chef knife for everything. When it's nice and sharp, it'll cut through tomatoes and tomato skin without crushing them. A paring knife actually works really well for deboning meat. You'd probably want a deboning knife later on, but again, these are kind of the basic items to build off of. So let's just kind of recap here a bit, because I feel like I rambled on a little bit, but cutting board, you have a spatula, whether that's a stainless steel or a silicone. Again, you're gonna probably want to pick one that's not gonna scratch or mar the surface of whatever you're cooking on. And then your knives, real simple list, right? So you have your chef knife and maybe a paring knife. And I think you can get away with doing a lot of stuff with just those few items there. Now, the next thing that I want to get into that I think is kind of essential is pantry staples. Now, again, this isn't going to be a definitive list of what you should have in your pantry at all times. This is more of a list that's kind of versatile, and you're kind of seeing the theme here. These are things that you can use multiple ways. And I'll say this, what you keep in your pantry, your fridge, is going to vary based on your diets, right? So I might have butter in my fridge. Someone might only carry clarified ghee, or a different style of rice. I might carry pinto beans where someone might carry black beans, or maybe those aren't even used at all. But I'm going to go down this list here and kind of, again, not a definitive list, but something that I feel like is very useful that you can use in many different recipes. And again, this is what we're going to do on this series. Is we're going to have a few follow-up videos where we make stuff and we build upon the ingredients so we can kind of grow out our cooking space. And this is really exciting to me because I think for anyone who's starting to learn to cook, or has cooked, or is cooking, but just doesn't understand like recipes, and you feel like you have to constantly go out and buy new things, I think you can get away with a lot of these basics and building dishes upon the stuff that you already have. So to start out with, eggs. Eggs, one of my go-tos. Now, I didn't put together a baking list, and I think that's probably not my strongest suit, is baking. But eggs for a lot of things, making homemade pasta, making some breads, some baked goods. Eggs are used in there quite a bit, which then brings me into the next item, right? Flour. Flour's going to be one of those items that, again, there's different types of flours, right? But you're going to be able to use that in any kind of baking. You're going to be able to use it to make gravies, thicken stews. It's very versatile. Flour's used for many different things. I mentioned this earlier, butter. I think butter's great. Butter's used for a number of different things. Animal fats in general are really good to use. You can use tallow, you can use duck fat, depending on what you're getting into. But butter's a real nice and basic item. I'll also cook with olive oil. Now, neither one of those are high temperature cooking oils, so you want to be careful if you are trying to fry something. So whether you're frying chicken, the dogs just looked at me again and said chicken, ooh. You're frying chicken, you're making potato chips. I'll say with olive oil, it has a low smoking temperature. So once you get a little over 350 degrees, it will start to smoke. It doesn't take much after that. And you know, that flavor changes dramatically in both butter and oil olive oil once you start to get it a little too hot. But regardless, those are kind of the two, butter and oil. Olive oil I keep on hand. I cook a lot with animal fats and the olive oil. Rice. Rice has been a big one for me. So over the past couple years, or at least the past year, I'll say, is I've been trying to find items such as pasta, rice that are a lower glycemic load for me. But what I've done is, I've introduced higher fiber items into my diet to kind of make sure that I'm not getting that huge glycemic load. And I love rice, whether that's just steamed rice, Spanish style rice, or adding rice into a dish like a one-pot meal. It's amazing. I love the texture, sometimes the taste. You can add some chicken bouillon or a broth to it and just really flavor it up. One of my favorite rice dishes comes from an Afghan restaurant that they just add spices to it, and you would just eat it all on its own. No sauce is needed. But yeah, very good. I think I said rice, beans, potatoes. Potatoes are one of those things that I'll never stop eating. I think since I was a kid, breakfast food, one of my favorites. But potatoes are great. different varieties of potatoes. You can literally go to the market and find probably a dozen different types between your fingerlings, your russets, or your Yukon Golds, right? You'll go and you'll find reds, you'll find whatever. I tend to keep one of two potatoes on hand. It's either going to be a russet or a Yukon Gold. And the one thing I like about russets is they're great frying potatoes. Really good if you're going to be doing something like potato latke, breakfast potatoes, French fries, hash browns, mashed potatoes, and really you can use any potato for these. It just depends on how much starch is in it that it's going to kind of crisp up. And you've noticed like different, if you ever eat fast food, you have your whatever your in and out, they use a specific type of French fry, and I've heard like McDonald's carries a different type of French fry or a different type of potato, excuse me. But yeah, keeping some potatoes on hand really can spice up a dish by adding just a little something extra. I know sometimes we cook dinners and it's like, okay, I'm good with just this one item and a salad. But sometimes for variety, I'd like to add something on the side, whether that's a potato salad or maybe it's just roasted potatoes or even French fries. We're grilling up burgers. It's kind of nice just to fry up some burgers. I think in one of the episodes that we did, one of the streams, it was duck fat fries. We did duck fat fries and then we got a little crazy and we added a little bit of truffle oil. That was really rich, but it was great. And I'll tell you that it was something I went above and beyond with those French fries. They really didn't need to be cooked in duck fat and they didn't need the truffle oil, but I'll tell you what, they were some of the best homemade fries I've ever had. They were great. So yeah, potatoes, keep some on hand, great to have. What about some other items? Like garlic. Garlic, salt, pepper, those are by far the most used ingredients in my kitchen. Salt, pepper, garlic. Onion as well. Onion, I use it in a variety of dishes where maybe I don't have so much garlic and I use onion because I really want more of that earthier, rooty taste to it. Where garlic has, it's a little bit more pungent and it's great topped fresh. You can saute with it, crisp it up, and it's great to put in like a chili oil or a salsa. I would say those things, and I don't know anyone who really doesn't have any salt and pepper in their pantry, right? I mean, salt and pepper, everything. But even if you're roasting a chicken, you can't go wrong if maybe all you have is salt, pepper, some garlic and onion. You cover that thing up, it's going to be great. And then the last thing that I'm going to get into with pantry staples or something that I'll carry in the fridge. And I had a tough one with this because I think when we look at certain items that would be essential or non-essential, I just went a little overboard here. And I think just saying cheese in general is great. Cheese for a dairy product, if you can have it. I mean, I'm lactose intolerant, so it gets a little bit rough, but I love different types of cheese. Whether that's a Gouda, a cheddar, or Parmesan. Nothing like having a fresh wedge of Parmesan. I say fresh, but I mean an aged Parmesan is anywhere between 6-12 months or even more, right? But that's going to be something that's just going to be so good. Again, you're taking something and you're just adding a little bit of extra flavor, and it's going to give something just a little bit more, a little spark to kind of upgrade your food a little bit. You're making some eggs and potatoes. Maybe shred a little bit of cheddar over the top, a smoked cheddar, or maybe a Gouda, and it's going to give it a little bit of that extra flavor, a little bit of a kick. And you know, same thing that you can do with like say a salsa or a chili oil, right? But So these items that I went over, they're kind of my picks for great essential items that you can have in the kitchen that you can be very versatile with. Now, in some of the next videos that we're going to do in this series, I'm going to take those ingredients and we're going to kind of build upon them. So as you start to build your cooking space, you're going to see that I'm using some stuff that maybe you don't have, or you're like, oh, that's great, I can get that because I will use that in other dishes. And I'm going to try my best to make sure that I don't go overboard and I pull out, you know, tarragon and saffron and all these things that maybe you don't use every day for making everyday meals, or your family just doesn't care for it, it doesn't matter. So we're going to start with some of those essentials that we talked about, right? And I did realize that there is one essential item that I think everyone should own, especially if you cook meats, and that's a thermometer. I should have mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you should definitely cook with a thermometer. If you're not familiar with temperature guidelines for meat, just look it up online. You can do a quick search, whether it's in an AI engine or, you know, a Google search, whatever it is. You'll get the USDA recommended temperatures for internal temperatures for meats when they're cooking. But I love to use just a simple thermometer. This one's actually a digital thermometer. There are other thermometers that you can use that you have to manually adjust, and those aren't too hard either. And we can go over that in another video or at a later date. But anyways, I want to thank everyone. First of all, if you stayed this long, awesome. I know that it's a bit long-winded, but we're going to build upon this series. Now, everything we do going from here in this series, we're going to try to make it very simple. We're going to try to use the utensils and the cooking equipment that we talked about. I know we didn't talk about stove, gas, electric, oven, things like that. But I feel like that's kind of a given when you're working in a kitchen. And I know whether that's a commercial kitchen, that's a home kitchen, or you have a studio apartment that might only have a microwave and a hot plate and maybe a stovetop oven, which you guys have seen. I oftentimes use my stovetop oven, my little air fryer, for a lot of items because I don't want to heat up the entire house. It doesn't make sense. But cool. All right, well, everyone, thank you so much. Please follow along with some of these cooking vids. And then, of course, we're going to have some other content that's going to be coming out later on. I've really been enjoying going out and finding some interesting meals and cooking ideas from other people. So look forward to some of that. All right, friends, thank you very much. Catch you later.